I'm here for the woman because men, we don't need them. I almost just started filming in slow motion. That would have been a nightmare. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Hayley. Today I'm going to tell you all about my favorite books of 2020. This year my goal was to read 50 books and I ended up reading 105. I read so many good books this year. Obviously this year was really hard and I think that reading is part of the reason why I remained sane. So thank you, books. Let's begin. I'm gonna start with the books that I don't own physically. I'm not gonna go in any particular order. I am gonna end with my favorite book, but the ones before those, like, there's no order. Right, so the first book was Know My Name by Chanel Miller. This is a memoir told by Chanel Miller, who was a victim of sexual assault on Stanford campus in 2015. Her victim impact statement was published on BuzzFeed, I believe, and it went viral. And so this case got a lot of attention. It is probably the best memoir that I've ever read. She doesn't just talk about herself as a victim. She also talks about the legal system and how it really needs to be improved and like how horribly they deal with sexual assault cases. She also just talks about in general like how women are treated by society and men and how there just needs to be so much change. It's just such a good book. I've talked about it a lot on my channel already, so if you want to hear more of my thoughts, then you can go watch my November wrap up. I think it's either November or October. The next book that I read was Circe by Madeline Miller, and I was gonna say I love this book, obviously. I actually was not expecting to love this book that much. I did read The Song of Achilles this year, and I also really liked The Song of Achilles, but I think my expectations were like way too high, and so it kind of fell short for me, but Circe did not. If you don't know what Circe is about, it's about the witch, Circe, or the sorceress, however you want to call her, you know, the woman who, well, actually, technically she's a nymph. But yeah, anyway, so it's about Circe and her childhood and then how she was banished to live on an island for punishment for something that she did. And so she was basically forced to live on this island for the rest of her life. But I think a lot of people had an issue with this book because they were like, no, it's just about talking to the people that come to her island and then having sex with them and that's it. And I was like, no. No ma'am, this book is so much more than that. I really resonated with Circe from literally page one. The way that she managed to remain strong and remain as herself and not give in to all this hatred that everyone around her was feeling towards her was just honestly really incredible to me, and I just really love the book. Madeline Miller's writing is so amazing, and I don't know, I read a lot of negative reviews right before and I was like, shut up. She has very, very beautiful prose, and I just love Circe's story. Even though it was really sad throughout the whole thing, I feel like it was still a very fulfilling story in the end. Another favorite that I have is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. Listen, I'm as surprised as you are because you know what? Classics can be scary. I feel like there's a lot of elitism surrounding classics. I only ever really read classics in school, and even then, I found them hard to understand. I don't have the brain cells to analyze and understand what these classics are trying to say. But this one actually was fine. I didn't struggle with it. It was a great read. If you don't know what The Picture of Dorian Gray is about, it's about this guy named Dorian who gets his portrait painted and he loves it so much. He's like, wow, I'm so beautiful in this portrait. And he's like, I wish that I could remain as beautiful as this portrait for the rest of my life. His wish comes true. So he doesn't age and he like doesn't become ugly, but the portrait does. The portrait goes through it over the years. You can see it in the face. It gets ugly, nasty, disgusting, you know, with every horrible thing that Dorian does. And as he ages, Oscar Wilde is honestly a really great writer, and I could see myself reading more of his books. Another one of my favorites was Felix Ever After by Case and Callender. Everyone loved this book and I was really excited to read it, even though I'm really not into YA contemporary romances. But I feel like this one, yes, it was about the romance, but I feel like it was mostly just about Felix really getting comfortable with his identity. If you don't know what it's about this transgender boy named Felix who is just trying to get into art school. He's trying to live his life. All of a sudden, there is this anonymous person who is sending him these transphobic messages, and Felix decides that he wants to figure out who it is because he's like, you are not going to try me today, bitch. And so he kind of goes on this little catfishing mission and basically catfishes who he thinks is the person who is harassing him. Okay. Harassing, literally, don't come for me in the comments. You know what I mean? But he basically goes on this little mission to catfish the person who he thinks is sending him these hateful transphobic messages, and he lands himself in a lot of drama. It's honestly a really heartwarming book, which you might be kind of surprised by because of, you know, the transphobia that is presented with these hateful messages that Felix is receiving. While that is like the main plot of the book, I feel like the actual main part of the book is about Felix discovering himself and really solidifying his identity, which is really special. The next book that I really loved was Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. You guys, I don't have enough good things to say about this book. I'm telling you, I was so shook when I loved it because I read it right after my favorite read of the year. And I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to enjoy another book ever again. I was like in the worst book hangover. And then this one actually just, I don't know, it had me by the throat the whole time. It follows a crew of scientists who are trying to discover what the hell happened to this previous crew that went into the Mariana Trench to discover mermaids. Everyone on this crew is like, yes, mermaids. Like, we're looking for the mermaids. We're pretty sure mermaids are what killed this crew, even though the rest of the world is like, it was a hoax. Mermaids aren't real. No one believes in mermaids. But this crew was like, no, we're going to prove that mermaids are real. So they go into the Mariana Trench, you know, the deepest part of the ocean. They're on their way to find these murderous mermaids. This is a horror book. And it was very bloody. It was so much fun to read. I was scared. I was very freaked out. I never get freaked out. I love watching horror movies, but this book actually freaked me out. The writing was so good that I vividly saw every scene just painted in this beautiful picture for me, this beautiful, horrible, scary, violent, bloody picture that gave me nightmares. I had nightmares. Not about this book specifically, but I did read 2 books back to back about the ocean, and I'm horrified. Like, I am so scared of the ocean, you guys. I had nightmares about the ocean. Some of the scariest dreams I've ever had. So, I mean, this book really put me through it, and I loved it. I loved every second of it. I saw a lot of people complaining about the science part of it because they're like, it's too sciencey, and I'm just here for the murderous mermaids. And I was like, maybe I'm a nerd, but I freaking love the science. I mean, I know I'm a nerd, but I love the science and the mermaids and the horror. I want this book to become a movie. One of the main characters is bisexual. There's a sapphic relationship. There's also autism rep. So yeah, there's also a lesbian character. Sapphics. This book is like perfect. I didn't rate it 5 stars. I think I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars because the resolution happened a bit too fast. But other than that, it was perfect. The next book that I have is what might be my new favorite romance book of all time. The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. I recently finished this book a few days ago. I did a buddy read with Cassidy and we both loved it. I think I loved it more than her because she was like, it's a bit too slow. And I was like, no, it was perfect. You guys know I love slow burn. People always say Mariana Zapata books are scary. Well, scary. They're like super slow and they're really long too. This book was almost 700 pages. Listen, you know I do not like long romance books. Like I don't think romance books need to be longer than 300 pages. But this one, when I tell you it was perfect, I'm not lying. I am not being dramatic. Like maybe I'm being a little dramatic, but I'm not being dramatic because this is one of the best romance books I've ever read in my entire life. I love slow burn. I love slow burn so much and it was done so well. People say it's too slow. No, it's perfect. The whole point of slow burn is that it's supposed to be slow. I can't even really tell you what this book is about without spoiling a major thing that happens. But basically you have this girl and she is an assistant for this football player who is called the Wall of Winnipeg because he is a big man. He's big, he's thick. And he's from Winnipeg. That's why he is the Wall of Winnipeg. And she is his assistant. And he's kind of an asshole. And so she's like, bitch, I'm out. She rage quits. And he shows up a few weeks later. And he's like basically begging for her to come back to him. I can't tell you why. Because it would spoil things. But it's like this emergency. And it's... When I tell you I wanted to reread it the second I finished it, I did. I have to read it immediately. The only issue that I have with this book is just the fact that some scenes would like randomly cut off. Scenes that you would think have importance, but then it randomly like end and the chapter would end and they move on. Like we wouldn't even really get to see the scene. And I'm like, oh, what? Like I get it. The book would have been like 9,000 pages long if we saw everything. But there were some scenes that I felt like would have served some importance for the plot that we just didn't get to see. Aside from those random cutoffs, the book is literally perfect. I'm gonna be reading all the rest of Mariana Zapata's books, that's for sure. Here I come. We're moving into the books that I own physically, and I'm gonna have to take them out. Hold on. Oh, we all know how much I love Throne of Glass. I'm not gonna talk for a million years about it, but yes, I read the Throne of Glass series for the first time this year. It is one of my favorite series of all time now. I loved all of them. I personally think that every book gets better than the last book, but these two were definitely my favorites in the series. But I also love Heir of Fire, and I love Crown of Midnight, and I love Empire Storms, and I love Tower of Dawn, and I love all of them. So, but these two are my favorites, so I just wanted to bring these two out. But I also read all of Sarah J Maas's books this year, which is like, relax, I know. I read ACOTAR, and I read Throne of Glass, and I read Crescent City. I'm not putting ACOTAR on this list just because I feel like that would be a lie. Do I love Feyre with my entire soul, my entire body, my whole being, my everything? Yes, she is an angel and I love her, but I just can't put the ACOTAR series on this list because I don't remember anything that happened in it. I have problems with that series, so I'm just gonna talk about these. But yeah, I've already raved about Throne of Glass on my channel before. Aelin is probably one of my favorite fictional characters of all time, and Throne of Glass, I think, is the reason why I now know so well what I look for in fantasy books. Throne of Glass gave me everything that I want in a fantasy series. I got so close to the characters. I think Sarah J Maas just writes such amazing characters, specifically amazing protagonists. I know a lot of people don't like Feyre. A lot of people also don't like Aelin. Can't agree with those crazy people. I think that she writes really amazing protagonists, and I think that she's one of the few fantasy authors that actually shows her characters going through it. Like, that's probably the main reason why I love her books, is because her characters go through all this horrible traumatic shit, and we actually see them reacting to that, and we actually see them not being okay. And I feel like in a lot of other fantasy books, they're just expected to be the hero and to act like everything's fine and to never have a moment where they're literally having a breakdown. But Sarah J Maas is like, no. These bitches are going through it. You're gonna see them be emotional and be a mess. And I appreciate that because I just feel like it's so real. Crescent City, yes, is it a murder mystery? Sure. But for me, this book is really about Bryce healing and Bryce finding the will to live. And I really appreciate that. Would I call myself a Sarah J Maas stan? No. Would other people call me a Sarah J Maas stan? Yes. Will I be fighting those people? Yes, because I don't want to associate with the stans, but I might be a stan, but I don't want to say I am because judgment. I do love her books. I think that she uses tropes incredibly well. She literally implements all of my favorite tropes, and then she even implements my least favorite tropes and somehow convinces me that they are my favorite tropes. All of her female characters are incredible. I love them. I'm here for the woman because men, we don't need them. I'm really glad that I decided to read them for the first time. That sentence. Why am I talking so fast? Oh my god. The next book that I have is this big bitch, The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. I always say that this book has dragons and lesbians in it, and personally, that was enough for me to pick it up. I talked about this book in my Books I Love But Don't Talk About video, so if you want to hear more about it, go watch that video. I'll have it linked somewhere. This book follows 4 different characters, if I'm gonna be honest, because 2 of the characters are women and I really like their storylines, and then the other 2 are men who, like, I genuinely don't even know one of their names because I don't know. I don't pay attention to the men. I'm sorry. I was here for the women. Like, honestly, women centered in high fantasy book is like everything that I want. One character, her name is Tanae. Is it Tanae? Is it Tanae? Tanae. She is training to become a dragon rider. Literally all you need to know. She's so cool. She's so badass and I love her. And then we have another character who the book follows. Her name is Iad, and she's kind of like a bodyguard for the queen. She's also sapphic and we love her. And she's so badass. Like, they're so cool. I'm telling you guys, so cool. And then we have this other guy. His name is Nicholas. He is this doctor. He's like this old man who just complains all the time and I hate him and I don't want to talk about him. And then we have another guy who I literally don't remember his name, you guys. Him and Nicholas aren't even on the inside flap, so to me that just goes to show how irrelevant men are. Obviously all their storylines are important, but I really was only here for the woman because I like to read about badass women in fantasy. It is huge, and I was always scared to read adult fantasy because I thought it was going to be super dense, and it just scared me because whenever I thought of adult fantasy, I thought of like the older ones, like Lord of the Rings, stuff like that, that's like super dense and just full of so much information that we don't need to know. But this one is also super dense and super thick and full of all this information that you might think you don't need to know. But personally, I love a good high fantasy book that has lots of lore and lots of history, because I feel like that just makes the world that much more atmospheric and expansive and real. I know I am a nerd and I like information. I feel like it was very relevant to the story. Some people say it's not, but personally, I love it. I know I am probably an unpopular opinion, but I feel like having lots of lore and history is a big part of high fantasies. But I feel like if you're gonna spend all this time and energy building a fantasy world, you already are creating history. Why would you not include that in the book? I personally love it. I know not everyone does, but I love it, and I thought it worked very well in this book. And Samantha Shannon's writing is so beautiful. She also has very poetic writing. It was the sapphics and the dragons for me. Read this book. It's not scary, it's beautiful, and it's amazing. And you could literally kill someone with this book. Like how I said, it's not scary, and then I proceeded to say that you could use this book as a weapon. Like, okay, so I have The Silvered Serpents by Roshani Chokshi. This is the second book in the Gilded Wolves trilogy. First of all, Roshani Chokshi's writing is incredible. It is so beautiful. Her writing in this book just made the book feel so magical to read. I felt like I was literally inside of the ice palace while I was reading it, and it was just such an atmospheric, magical read. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. If you don't know what the Gilded Wolves is about, it's basically just this magical heist. It takes place in the late 1800s in France. This group of people are trying to work together to steal back these artifacts that actually rightfully belong to them, which I think is a really cool twist on the heist, because I feel like heists usually are just about people being greedy, wanting money, you know, whatever. But this time it's about this group of people that are trying to take back what is rightfully theirs. And so I really love that. It was kind of special for them. I just love the dynamics between all of the characters, all their budding relationships. If you love found family, and if you want a diverse cast of characters, and if you want a magical read, then read The Gilded Wolves. The next book that I have is Song of Race and Ruins by Roseanne A. Brown. The second I opened this book, I was like 15 pages in and I was like, I need to buy this. The world building is incredible. Like, literally from the first chapter, I was sucked in immediately. I also love that it's based off of West African mythology, and it's based in West Africa, or like a fantasy version of West Africa. This book is basically about these two people. You have the princess, soon to be queen, Karina, and then you have Malik, who is just a random city boy. I don't think city boy is an accurate way to describe him. He's just like a regular degular dude, you know? I don't know why I said city boy. Like, it's not. Anyway, I don't know. Okay, so we have soon-to-be queen Karina. Her mother dies and she is not ready to take over their kingdom. So she decides that she is going to do this scary dark magic to bring her mother back. But in order to do that magic, she needs the heart of a king. And so she hosts this competition to find the next king. Malik and Karina's paths cross when Malik has to enter into this competition because he needs to kill Karina, because his little sister got snatched up by this demon, and the demon was like, if you want your sister back, you need to kill Karina. And so Malik is like, I'm gonna enter in this competition and kill Karina. So these two teenagers are on a path to kill each other, and they don't even know each other. A lot of people say that this is like enemies to lovers. Technically, you could say, because they are trying to kill each other, but they don't really have that dynamic because they don't really know each other. But it's such a good read. Like, when I tell you, the world building is so rich, the stakes are so high, and just all the twists and turns, and it's so good. I love a good fantasy book where like everything is just connected so well. It's like you can clearly see how each action affects every event of the book. And I love it when books are like that, when it's not just random consequence that makes everything occur, but like you can clearly see how the characters and their own actions are causing everything to happen. It's a debut novel. And I just can't believe how good it was. I'm so excited for book 2. Also, I just want to say I love how Karina's rage is not made out to demonize her, if that makes sense. I feel like a lot of times people like to look at angry Black women and be like, oh, you're just angry and aggressive and mean. But she's grieving the loss of her mother, and she's angry because no one's listening to her and she has to do everything by herself. And I just love seeing that. There's also anxiety rep in here because Malik has anxiety and it was done so well. I don't think I've ever read a book that portrayed anxiety as well as this one. The Unfriendly Black Hotties read this book. I think it was our September book. So we have a live show on that. If you want to go check it out, go to the Unfriendly Black Hotties channel. The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. It was one of my favorite fantasy books I think that I've ever read, just because of how incredibly well written it is. I think historical fantasy is just so good. Like, I'm really getting into the genre. It's about this girl named Rin who goes off to this elite military academy and trains to become a soldier, and then a war breaks out and shit goes down and she looks to the gods for some powers in order to end the war, and it just gets so crazy. Rin is like probably the most morally gray slash, you could say, bad character that I've ever read. She is just willing to go to the most extreme lengths to do what she needs to do, and I just love reading about that. I'm honestly tired of reading about characters that only want to do good, to an extent obviously, but I just love seeing how Rin reacts to situations, and I just love seeing how her mind works. And I think R.F. Kuang has told such an incredible story, and like I said, it's historical fantasy. It is based off of real events that have happened in China. The main conflict of the book is based off of the Second Sino-Japanese War, so there are a lot of awful war atrocities in this book, so definitely check out the trigger warnings if you want to read it. It is a fantasy book, but it is very real, so just be mindful when you're reading that. And the book is incredible, and so is the second book, and I haven't read The Burning God yet because I'm a little scared, but we will get to that eventually. Okay, so the last book I have is Sky Beyond the Storm by Sabaa Tahir. This is my favorite read of 2020. If you want to see me cry over it for 17 hours straight or 30 minutes straight, go watch my reading vlog of this book. This is the 4th book in the Ember and the Ashes series, and if you don't know what that series is about, it basically just follows this scholar named Laya and there's a martial soldier named Elias, and basically after Laya's brother gets taken by the Marshals, she has to become a spy in the Marshal Empire in order to figure out what happened to her brother, and her and Elias's paths cross, and Elias is kind of dealing with his own shit because he doesn't want to be a soldier. He hates the Empire. He just wants the freedom to choose his own life and to do whatever he wants, and so he has issues. I think this series aged like fine wine. I reread the first 3 books this year and I love them way more than I read them the first time. I think Sabaa Tahir is an incredible writer. I literally would read anything that this woman publishes. I don't even need to know what the book is about. I will pick it up and I'll read it. This book was the perfect conclusion to the Ember series. It was perfect. It was bittersweet. I just can't imagine a better way for the series to end. And if you haven't read the Ember series, I literally don't know what you're doing. Pick it up immediately. Yeah, this is my favorite read of the year. I read so many good books. It was really hard to narrow it down to a nice size list for this video. If you made it this far in the video, comment a celebration emoji for the new year. I hope you also had a really good reading year for 2020. And if you didn't, I hope that this video can inspire you to read some better books next year. Comment down below your favorite read of 2020. I'm really excited to know what those are, mostly because I need book recs. But yeah, that's it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Remember to like this video. Remember to leave a comment down below and remember to subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next week with another video. Bye.